Hello friends, welcome to Game of Taxes. I am here with my first presentation on GST, that is Goods and Service Tax. GST has been rolled out in India from 1st July 2017 and I am going to give you an overview of GST. GST is being hailed as biggest tax reform in the history of India. However, in my opinion, it is not just a tax reform, but it will change the way in which business is done in India. GST will usher an era of transparency and high tax compliance. It is one such reform which would not only affect the government and the businessman, but also the final consumer. This tax reform aims to make the consumer more aware about the taxes which he is supposed to pay on all the goods and services consumed by him. This tax reform is technology driven and thus it aims to minimize the human interface between the taxpayers and the tax authorities. There were 17 taxes and 23 cesses which have been subsumed into GST. Few of them are shown in the slide, such as central excise, service tax, VAT, entry tax, octroi, entertainment tax, luxury tax, wealth tax, and there were certain cess such as education cess, Swachh Bharat cess, which were subsumed into GST. Therefore, you can see that the GST is taking away the multiplicity of taxes which were levied on one transaction at different stages. India has implemented a dual GST, wherein both central government and state government has powers to tax. However, it has been decided that only one SSC would be interacting with either center or state. Therefore, GST would reduce the multiple interfaces and there will be single interface with the tax authorities, thus reducing the burden of the taxpayer. As already informed, GST is backed by a strong IT infrastructure called GST Network or GSTN, on which SSC can apply for registration, file their returns, apply for refunds, etc. Thus, GSTN would reduce the physical interface with the tax authorities. No cascading effects. GST would mitigate the problem of tax on tax. The reason for tax on tax was the existence of multiple taxes levied by different authorities with no mechanism of cross utilization of tax paid to one authority to payment of tax to other authority. So for an example, if a person manufactures goods worth rupees 100 and he pays central excise duty at 10%, that is rupees 10 on manufacture, the final cost after including central excise duty would be 110 rupees. Now state government used to levy VAT on rupees 110 and thus the tax paid on rupees 10 central excise duty was tax on tax. There will be a seamless flow of credit and abolition of central sale tax. So in continuation of my previous point, since only one type of tax is to be paid at every stage, the credit of tax paid would be available at every stage. Further, the central sale tax, which was levied on interstate transaction, has been replaced by integrated GST, that is IGST, which will ensure that no credit is lost at any stage. Prior to GST, there were disputes relating to classification of certain transactions for the purpose of levy of tax. So, for an example, if a software is sold as a compact disc or CD, so whether this transaction would be leviable to service tax or VAT. Thus, with rollout of GST, these disputes would no longer be in existence as the same tax would be levied on goods and services. A uniform taxation throughout India, there were taxes in the form of entry tax which were levied by different states on different items at different rates, which used to make some goods cheaper in one state than another state. However, GST would subsume entry tax and thus a commodity would be taxed at one rate only throughout India. So there will be a uniform taxation, uniform rates throughout India. In view of the points explained above, the final prices of all the goods are likely to reduce due to reduction in cascading effect and availability of input tax credit at all stages. So friends, there is a rumor of increase in prices in the market, but there is a reduction in prices due to all these points. Finally, GST being a destination-based tax would result in development of those areas where the consumption of goods or services is more by increase in revenue collection of the states. So earlier there was those states who were into manufacturing used to gain a lot from this taxation system, but now as this is a consumption-based tax, so those states where the consumption is more, they are going to gain good amount of taxes out of this new reform. Since it is a technology-driven tax reform and for credit to flow seamlessly throughout the value chain, every person would be required to register under GST. And also the incentives available for non-payment of taxes has reduced substantially, which would result in minimization of black transactions. So, friends, now I will tell you what is the taxable event now. So, we need to now understand how GST would be different from the old taxes. Earlier, the taxable event for the purpose of levy of central excise was manufacturing of goods, whereas for the levy of service tax, it was provision of services. In case of VAT, it was trading of goods. However, under GST, the taxable event is supply of goods or services or both. So taxation of transaction. We need to now understand that how the transactions would be taxed under GST. In case of intrastate transaction, where the goods and services are supplied within the same state, the tax levied on such transaction would be CGST and GST. So in this, both A and B are in the same state and the tax levied on such transaction is CGST and SGST, where the CGST and SGST are in equal proportion and can be collected either by the center or the state. However, coming to the interstate transaction, where the transaction is between two states, so if C is in state A and D is in state B, then this transaction will have IGST, that is integrated GST on this type of transaction. So this will make you understand that what is the proportion of CGST and SGST. They are in equal proportion and combinedly they will form the IGST, which is double the amount of CGST or SGST. So the rates declared by the GST Council, which you might have be hearing as 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%, are actually IGST rates, and these will be divided in equal half with the center and the states. This is just an example of invoices which you will be getting in after GST, and in this I have shown you that this is the name of the shop, this is their GSTN number, which is a complicated number, and the consumer has consumed item A, B, C, and D at different rates, and the total is coming around 700. So you can see that the CGST 9% is applied and SGST 9% is applied, and the final bill is 826, and in case of IGST it will be 18%. So this is a very simple version of all the taxes. Earlier you might have seen your bills having lot of calculations down this side, which which is hard to understand, but now this is very simplified and this will ease the way of doing business, as well as consumer will become more aware of all these tax. So, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and please hit like and subscribe to my channel Game of Taxes, because there is a lot more coming in this channel, such as registration in GST, what is HSN code, what is zero rated supply, how you will process returns under GST, how you are going to process your refunds under GST, what is advance ruling, and there is a news of changes in custom law after the implementation of GST. So I will cover all these things in my upcoming slides. So keep watching. Thank you so much.